Hello, everybody.
Yay. So for those of you that don't know, Ariel is a co-founder of Interaxon, the company that makes Muse, one of the most important and most popular consumer technologies that is a meditation training tool. And she can describe that a little bit later on. And she's now the chief evangelist officer of Muse. So she's really bringing the excitement and energy and awareness of what the company is up to into the world. And Ariel is also, on a more personal note, one of my favorite voices in the space representing this perspective, because she's bringing such a balance of heart and intellect and wisdom and honestly a really important feminine voice at this intersection of technology and humanity and our deeper human experience. And so I was telling her earlier today that the fact that she took the time to come out here from a conference facilitation perspective is hugely important to me, because I think she actually is a really important piece of this conversation, an important piece of this puzzle. So thank you, Ariel, for being here.
Thank you, Mikey. It is such an honor to be here and so exciting to see everyone in the audience. Hello. I want to stand up for a second and just sort of radiate some love. Hello.
Yay.
Hello. Can everyone take a moment to just feel some love shining from your heart? Just drop into your heart and start to feel the love shining from it. Start to feel how warm that glow is. And maybe if you listen closely, you can start to feel the love of the person behind you, because now they're shining and radiating that love towards you. So maybe your back is feeling warm with all the glow from behind you, and now your heart is feeling warm with all the glow you're feeding forward. Now we can all open our eyes and be here together in this amazing space of connection. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Much love.
Thank you. See what I'm talking about? So, and she's building the technology, thank God. Okay. So this is going to be more of a conversation for the next 15 minutes, and it's meant to really pave the way for the larger unpanel conversation. And so my first question for you, Ariel, is just, can you tell us about fear and freedom? What does that mean for you?
So fear and freedom is an interesting thing that I've been playing with lately. And I've been really approaching fear in a way that I never have in my life, which is to go right into it. So anytime I find something that I'm afraid of, I stop and I feel it. And sometimes it's like, oh, I'm feeling fear. Okay, that's cool. Sometimes it's like, holy fuck, I'm feeling fear and I'm gonna freak the fuck right out now. But I haven't died in every single time I've approached that fear. And what I've recognized through this process is how much fear holds us back each and every day. And whether that is standing up in front of a room full of people and leading them through an exercise, or talking to somebody, or starting a company, or just reaching out to a stranger who you don't know. In every one of those instances, we start to maybe think there's something we should do, and then there's this wall of fear that comes up. And then we don't do it because that wall of fear is what we're afraid of. We're not even afraid of the action. We're afraid of feeling the fear associated with it. And so you start to do the thing, and you're like, oh, I'm afraid, and then you don't want to feel the fear, so you pull back. And that keeps us in the nice little box of our lives and moving forward and not making change. And when you can actually go towards that habit and not suppress the fear, but feel the fear, like feel all of the sensation of fear associated with reaching out and touching a stranger or connecting, and feel all that fear and realize that when you get to the other side, you're fine, that fear just breaks and dissipates. And then anything you want to do next becomes so much easier. And if fear comes up, that's okay, feel the fear. You can feel the fear and do it anyways because you're not going to die. And as we start to break through these habits of feeling fear, we start to open the space for connection and humanity and love in ways that we may not have realized was possible.
Beautiful. Thanks,
So the
Ariel.
reason that I bring this up in a tech panel is because there's the opportunity for technology to help us with this. You know, you have VR experiences that can allow you to face your deepest fears and still know that you're safe, and feel them and experience them and get through them. There's the opportunity for sensor technology to inform you when you are feeling fear in ways that you may not have noticed. So I think these, traditional methodologies and these wisdoms and teachings that we've heard for years, like there's nothing to fear but fear itself, when we add a layer of technology onto them, can bring kind of reality to help us transform through them.
So this is the moment, at least in my experience talking about these topics, when we talk about bringing technology to support us in this very human experiences, this very human part of our transformation, there can be the sense that this is at odds with our humanity. Can you speak to that sense of tension?
It is a real tension, and it's a tension that I feel because I'm far more interested in the human than in the tech. I would far prefer to sit in a forest than be on my laptop. I'd far prefer to feel a fleshy human than have a virtual experience of one. However, we can add layers of technology into these experiences to help enhance and nudge them in some ways. And when we talk about habit change is really, really hard. And if we have tools and technologies that can help us guide us towards new habits, those create new opportunities for change without necessarily getting in the way of what is human, and hopefully actually more deeply connecting us to what is human. Because the thing about humans is that we have lots of parts to us. We're really complicated. And when we say, get in touch with our humanity, are we talking about the fear humanity, the anger humanity, the fear that gets in the way of love? Are we talking about the distraction that gets in the way of going deep? All of these things are human. Can we create tools and technologies that help us see those aspects of our humanity that we are generally usually missing and let us guide towards the parts that we would like to go deeper with?
So to kind of dig into that a little bit, so you're talking about all these different parts, these different ways, these different facets of what it means to be human. And in that soup, there can often be this feeling that technology is outside of it all, that it's separate from what it means to be human, that it's separate from nature. It's this sort of separate intruding force into our lives. And so in a way, I imagine there's some people that are sort of nodding with you. They're like, okay, yeah, maybe technology can kind of nudge us, or maybe technology can kind of give us a little reminder. Okay, it could be useful in a couple ways here and there, but it's still over there. It's still totally separate, intruding alien force. Can you speak to that larger tension? Is it this totally separate thing, or how do we relate to it? What's a healthy relationship to technology?
That's an extremely difficult question.
Sorry.
I'm glad you asked
We
it.
didn't plan for that one.
That's okay. No, it's awesome. So when I was 8 years old, I was in my living room, and there was a man called Vincent John Vincent. He was one of the founders of VR and gesture-based computing. And this was the 80s. I'm 39, if anyone wants to do the math. And he was talking about how we were going to exist with computers, and gestures would allow us to interact in these computer worlds. And at 8 years old, I was like, this is the worst thing I can think of. This is completely anti-natural, and we should never go this way. I am all about the human and nature. Fast forward 31 years later, and I create a technology that helps you get in touch with humanity. So I don't think these two things are at odds, but we cannot forget what the goalpost is. The goalpost is not technology for the sake of technology. Technology is cool, and we might have this, current fascination with it or infatuation with it, but the technology itself is a distraction if we are focusing on the technology. If we're applying technology such that it is in service of the human, and we can find ways for the technology to move aside once we've gotten in touch with that human part, if it helps us build the skills that are required to connect more deeply with ourselves, if it allows us to see a mirror onto ourselves and reflect behaviors that we couldn't otherwise have access to, then that's a valuable use for technology. Most of the time it is just distracting us. I would not stand here in defense of technology except in the ways that it enables us to do the things we care about more deeply, which it can.
Beautiful. Technology in service to humanity. I resonate with that. And so to kind of make it more specific, you have been working on a technology in service to humanity. Can you, for those...
hope. I don't know if it is.
You
I
hope.
think
That's the intention,
I
believe, from talking with you. And can you, for those people that aren't familiar, could you describe what the technology is, what it does, and then maybe your deepest vision? Where's that growing? What would you love to see that accomplish in the world?
Cool. So I make a device called Muse, for those of you that don't know it. It's a brain sensing headband that helps you meditate. It's a clinical grade EEG that tracks your brain during meditation and gives you real-time feedback to know when you're in focused attention and when your mind is wandering. So when we look at tools that help us transform and get in touch with ourselves, meditation is kind of on the top of the list. And so we took the activity of focused attention meditation and recognized that it's very hard to do. You sit there, you close your eyes, your brain bounces all over the place, and you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, this sucks. Or even if you do know what you're supposed to do, you sit there and you're very quiet with your thoughts and try to notice when your mind wanders, but you often miss it. And so we recognize that if we could insert some support into this process, we could make it more effective for people, help get more people on board and get people deeper into the process. So Muse gives you real-time feedback during your focused attention meditation to know when you're focused and when your mind is wandering. And the metaphor we use is your mind is like the wind. So when you're thinking and distracted, you hear it is stormy, and as you come to focused attention, it quiets the storms. And then after the fact, you get data, so you actually see what your brain is doing moment by moment.
And I want to just add one more function of the Muse. I tried to get my parents to meditate for years, and they just didn't feel comfortable with it. Meditation just wasn't for them. But I bought them a Muse headset, and they would send me these selfies. You know, my mom would be like conked out on the couch with a Muse headset on, and they're like, "We're musing," you know. And there's this thing about it, which is it's also a cultural bridge, right? There were people that will use a technology that won't just meditate.
Meditation may be weird and woo-woo for many. This is a technological tool based on neuroscience that tracks your brain and shows your progress. So if you need to access it from that dimension, it's there. If you want to access it as a consciousness explorer, it's there for you as well.
And so now, taking it bigger, I mean, what if your wildest dreams came true in terms of the kind of positive impact that Muse could have in the world, or technologies like it? What would that be? What's the greatest, the best possible outcome, the best case scenario?
So for me, the best case scenario is a world in which we shut down our scarcity thinking, a world in which we are kind and generous to one another, a world in which we put another in front of ourselves. And in order to do that, it's very hard. We have these really base desires that drive us that are hard to see, that are hard to understand, and hard to overcome. And we have amazing technologies like meditation, 2,000-year-old technologies that teach us pathways to help to quiet those internal states in order to access deeper states and to shift and change our behavior. And so, you know, if I could imagine what the most brilliant future would be, it would be that everybody's learned that we are all wonderful people. We don't need to be scared of one another, and we can act generously and kindly. And hopefully meditation is one of the tools that helps us get there. And so hopefully I've helped build something that enables more people to meditate and reach that state effectively.
And you're a living example of it. Yeah.
At moments,
in
not
my
all.
own experience.
Only at some moments. But thank you. It's very kind.
So we have quite a few folks in the audience that are working to, I imagine in a broad sense, trying to bring this into the world. I'm curious how many people are actually developing some sort of product, technology, intervention that's trying to support human beings in this way. Raise your hand. Quite a few. So
Awesome!
What advice would you give to these people that are actually working to create some kind of intervention like this?
So I would, if you want to create an intervention or currently are, you know, the process is asking, where are we going? You know, what is it that we're trying to achieve? And what are the tools or technologies that we need to get there? And, you know, some people are working on zapping the brain to get you into a persistent state of wellness, which is an awesome route. For others, it's much more stepwise. You know, the question could just be, how do I get somebody to sit more effectively in order to start a practice? How do I get somebody to remember to feel love before they ask a question of someone else? And so in all of these opportunities for both human interaction and personal interaction, we could use help and support. We as humans need guidance. We need scaffolding, as we heard yesterday. And so you ask yourself, what is the technological solution? What do I need in order to build this little bit of scaffolding, to nudge the habit forward, to create more connection? Is there a technology that can fill that gap? And if not, what would I imagine a technology could be to fill that gap? And so that's a process I'm constantly taking when I examine our interpersonal behaviors and say, how could we make this better, and how could we build something to help people make it better? The other side of that is responsibility. So, you know, there are millions of lonely people, hundreds of millions of lonely people. Online dating is an amazing thing, but it also is super shitty in a lot of ways. Online dating, great technology for connection, tons of problems. So with everything that we create, we have a real responsibility to understand all of the implications of it and to hold space for what's going to work and honestly hold space for the aspects of it that are going to be deleterious, that are not going to work, that are going to be misused, and constantly be transparently iterating to overcome those barriers and take on the responsibility personally and deeply to keep advocating for the best that technology can offer in our connection to one another.
Amen. Thank you. That's amazing. So anything that we have a minute or two left. Anything that we didn't cover that you want to be able to express to the audience that you want to say?
So I think we are all fundamentally amazing creatures, and we're all kind of missing one of three things: safety, love, and worth. And as a psychotherapist, I would spend, years with my patients getting them to understand that they were fully safe, they were fully loved and fully worthy, and it's so hard to get. And so if I had a magic wand and could just wave it and say you could know that you are fully safe, fully loved, and fully worthy, I would do it. And so I think there's so much opportunity for technology to help us understand and come to recognize those pieces in ourselves. And those are only helpful when you also add in a healthy dose of service. That everything that we're doing when we build these technologies is in service of others, is in service of a better planet, is in service of greater connection to one another. So.
Thank you, Ariel. It's time for applause now.